Hey there, Balanced Lady Bosses. Welcome to another epic of the Balanced Lady Boss Show. How have you guys been doing this summer? It is summer 2022. I'm not sure when you're going to be actually listening to this or watching this because, of course, with tech, it may be one date today, but then by the time you actually get the message, it's another. But for me right now, it is summer 2022. And it has been such a wild ride over the last several weeks. I've been traveling a lot and spending a lot of time with my kids and family. And it's been hot everywhere. So, I mean, global warming is real, guys. I don't know if anybody else is feeling it, but I'm certainly feeling it. So, how are you guys doing? What's been happening for your summer? Some of you may have kids going to summer school. My son was actually doing a couple of his university courses over the summer. He's getting ready to enter his final year. I can't believe it. One more year and one is fully launched. At least we hope so. And then my time with the girls was really great. We actually did aside from my traveling to Atlanta, which I've been just in and out of Hotlanta, in and out of Hotlanta. I love that city, miss that city being there full time, but everything in time, right? But with the girls, we did a trip to Mexico, which was so much fun. I have a vlog episode that is all about that. So if you're listening and you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you definitely want to hop on over to YouTube so that you can actually see what happens in my regular life. From time to time, I share that. And there is actually a vlog episode that is talking about little tidbits from our time in Mexico. And of course, we have tech conferences happening. The circuit has started. I will say, however, that I find that a lot of the conferences that I typically attend or want to attend happen in the last quarter of the year. I don't know if it's a thing, but it seems like there are a lot of tech conferences that happen between September and December. Anywho, actually went to a conference, Canto, which is the Caribbean Regions Conference for all telecoms and government and all of that stuff. So it was nice to actually be in person at a conference because that kind of took a back burner for a little while. And aside from the conference work, it was on South Beach, okay? And it was me and Honey Boo. So not only did we get in some conference time, but we did also manage to squeeze in a little couples time here and there, which was also very nice, right? So the state of summer has been very active. And I'm going to talk about just how YOLO I went on my food situation that had me end up at the doctor. Okay, because Stacy's not necessarily supposed to be eating all the things that she wants to eat, right? So summer has been a lot of work planning for this big, big, big new program that I'm actually going to be announcing on this podcast episode. So lots of different things about work. My sabbatical came to an end, right? So I got to do a whole bunch of episodes because there's just so many things to catch up on. It's been like just so many things happening, right? And aside from the family things, which I think are really, really important, summer is also a time for you to spend time with yourself for some of that self care. Maybe a little girls' time, which I didn't really have like an extended girls' time, but I've been squeezing in my dinners and my brunches and hangouts with my girlfriends. Definitely did that a few times while I was passing through the Atlanta space. And while I'm here in Jamaica until I go back to Atlanta, I'm definitely going to make sure that I do some of that as well. So let's get to the meat of the matter. Why are you lady bosses here today? Because you want to figure out how to own your power. That's right. You want to figure out how to own your power, or maybe you want to understand what I mean when I say own your power. So here's what is true. Today's conversation is all about demystifying the thinking that women have about the way they need to show up at work and what makes them actually powerful and the presence that they bring to the boardroom and the bedroom and how that is affecting their lives and the creating of the success that they want, and how it is interpreted in the minds of the other persons that they are involved with, whether it's you're involved with them at the office, or you're involved with them through your community relations, or if it's family and friends, or your love partner or spouse, right? And it's an important conversation to have, because we underestimate how important it is for us to be aware of our power. We absolutely underestimate it, right? First and foremost, I want to start off with where this power dynamic came from, right? And I like to think about the way that women look at work based on the history of work. Okay. And what that means is, even though you may be a Gen Xer or a Gen Zer or a millennial or even a baby boomer, when you think about the way that work has evolved, it didn't just get to its current state when you entered the workforce, right? And you can tell because, of course, there's lots of data and studies everywhere that talk about all the things that need to change in the workplace for women, and how difficult it is for women in today's world to actually be experiencing work the way they want to experience it. There's lots of conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some of you may even be wondering, what does DEI mean? What does that have to do with me? Some of you may not even be wondering. Some of you may not even have heard the term, right? So there's different levels of understanding of women at work and the power dynamic and how we got here in the first place. I am not a historian, so let's just say that, right? And it's not my intention to take you, through the histology of how it got here, but maybe just a little bit, right? So if you think in practical terms, because I like practical and easy, I don't want it to get too complicated and I have to overthink the thing. If you think in practical terms, when we had the very early days in Europe and in North America, I can't necessarily speak to, and I'd have to do more, I think, research on what was happening in like Africa, right? But you're coming out of situations where you have predominantly, we start off with tribes, and then that transitioned into farm workers, and you had a government, quote unquote government, or aristocrats, so to speak, the higher ups, who would govern the lands and who would manage the trade, because it started off as trading and bartering, and then coins were invented and all of this stuff, and all of this commerce, in how we were exposed to it, was predominantly managed by men, visibly predominantly managed by men. If we look back, I'm sure that you can see through your different watching of period pieces, etc., that there was always a very male-dominated perspective. Whether it was that that's what was being captured by the persons, that the historians, or not, but you would always hear about the king in the castle, or you'd hear about the farmer and his wife would be the person that would be in the field. Similarly, when it was reported about the cave days, it would be the cavemen who would huddle together and go hunting, and the women who would stay and mine the caves and build a community and take care of each other until the cavemen came back and brought the catch. The men would go hunting. So let's think about all of that history. Fast forward it now to where we actually have commerce and industry, and you're now thinking of war has happened, and the men have gone off to war. Some women now have to take up, instead of them waiting at home or cooking and cleaning and making the home or taking care of the children, right? They now had to start figuring out, well, my husband is off at war. I have to figure out a ways to make a living, a means to make a living, right? And so they would now step into maybe becoming a factory worker, right? Or opening a hair salon, or doing different types of things to actually start bringing money in. They still had the responsibilities of taking care of the home, even though they would also now be trying to introduce these new things. When you're thinking about the corporate world and actually, being inside of an office, you would have the bosses, and then when women would be coming into work or being introduced into the workplace, they'd be the ones that are answering the phones, or the secretaries that are, bringing the coffee, right? So you have this kind of picture in your mind now of how we have evolved in the space of what male support and dominance looked like versus female support and dominance. However, along that same path, the woman's work that she was doing was not considered dominant work, right? So bringing up a family or taking care of a home was not necessarily considered dominant work because you weren't a quote unquote breadwinner earning money to pay a bill or earning money to put the food on the table or to cook the food, etc. So your opinions may not have been validated or even listened to, and you guys know this, right? You've seen it in different movies, etc. My point is that the evolution of how we have been introduced to work and introduced to the corporate workspace has been designed and predominantly managed, sustained, maintained by man. And so woman who is now stepping into that in a more intentional way and saying, hey, I may not have kids at home or a partner, or even if I do, I want to be able to contribute in this way as well. With that happening more and more, we have now all these different conversations that are happening, all these different policies that companies are putting together to get more women into roles inside of corporate, because there is value that a woman brings. And we all know this. The only challenge, guys, is that we are trying to fit a round peg into a large round peg into a small square hole, basically, right? So we are essentially trying to fit a woman and all the different things that make up her power center, right? Her nurturing, her caring, etc. The having to take care of the home, having to take care of the children, having to birth the children, and having to take care of the man in many instances, right? We're putting all of those things and adding on now the layer of I am also contributing to the working world in the way that the man contributes to the working world. We're putting all of that, bundling it together, and putting that into a male-built framework. Of course, you're going to have problems. Of course, you're going to have women that do not understand their power and understand how to wield that power in the space of corporate environment. And this is anywhere in the world, right? So you have women clamoring to get into roles of significance or even just be paid equally and all of those things. And for me, I think it's less about the being paid equally. I think maybe we should be paying more. If we're more qualified, we have to stop at being paid equally. No, pay me more. If I'm better, pay me more, right? So it's less, for me, it's less about being equal to the man and having the same amount of power as the man. It is really about understanding what your power is as woman, standing in that power, right? And then utilizing that to build your own ladder of success. Why you need to climb somebody else's ladder? No, I'm not being a radical. Okay, let me just put that there. Or maybe I am. We'll come back to that later, whether I'm being radical or not. But the truth is, guys, is that I don't believe that our DEI efforts are as successful as we'd like them to be. Not only because companies are lying about hiring more women, or they're putting out statistics and putting out commercials that have a lot more black faces or Asian faces or Indian faces, a lot more women of color, Latinas, etc. So the commercials and the pictures in the waiting area have a lot of diversity to it. They're doing that, but it's not really showing up elsewhere, right? But that's not why things are failing. It's not failing because companies lack integrity or bosses lack integrity. It's also failing because the women, us ourselves, have not been prepared for what is required to operate in this world that was designed for and by men. Now, until we have actually built out a corporate world that is designed for a woman, which I actually think is something that we should explore. Like, I would love to do that. Just sit down and just think through, well, what would it be like if I designed working world. Maybe I'll do that as another episode, right? But aside from waiting for that to happen, where women have designed what our working world would look like if we didn't have, if corporate and industry did not exist at all, and we had a completely blank canvas, and the same women that were in that kitchen or in that nursery, right, or wherever you were serving and standing in your power, right? If we were the ones to get together and say, let's design work, let's design a place where we're coming together and creating structures and rules for how we're going to make money, right? Let's design that. What would those buildings look like? Would we even have buildings? Yes, we would have places that are communities. What would that look like? What would an actual work day look like? What would a work week look like if a woman designed it herself, or if a group of women designed it themselves? Okay? I think it would be different. I think there would be some differences if we could actually step away from the influence of what already existed, right? Now, if we're not waiting for that to happen, then what can we do in the interim? In the interim, we can learn how to become successful in the existing framework. Because there's always that, right? You have so many stories of persons who have broken the mold, or in our case, broken the glass ceiling. And the idea is not to focus on, well, how do I disrupt this thing, right? It's really to focus on, how do I create the best experience for myself that was going to equal the most success for myself, the most abundance for myself, and how is it going to equal me at operating at my highest level of excellence without the stress, overwhelm, and burnout. And in that process, guys, the disruption will come. In that process, all the shifting and the power plays and all of that stuff, that will come because you have identified a way to access the success in a way that works for you, that makes you feel good, and you're doing it in the boundaries that you've been given now. And when I talk about boundaries, I'm not saying that you are not breaking through barriers that are there that aren't meant for you, right? So that's the first thing I think we really have to get clear on, is we have to recognize that, we are working within a framework that was designed a particular way. And just like any other system, you can work that system and you can succeed above and beyond anything that the system could have ever even created or imagined, or whatever the case is, right? So I think if we can wrap our minds around the possibility that we are far more powerful than we believe we are, first and foremost, is that you have to think it, right? You have to think it before it can even actualize itself, okay? And for many of us, when you talk about power and women, it's a very negative connotation. It's almost like you feel like, it's a bad thing. And I don't want to be powerful. I just want to be successful. Okay. So why can't you be powerful and successful? Right? Or I don't really want power, I just want to be happy at work. Why can't you have and own your power? Because it's innate, guys. Like, there is no, I am not powerful. You have that power already within you. It's whether or not you choose to step into it and to be courageous enough to step into that power that will determine what success you are able to access. All right? So let's talk about the different ways that you can own your power. I'm going to break up power ownership into 3 buckets, right? Mind, body, and energy. And this is where I feel that all our power centers reside, okay? And when you think about just those 3 pillars and the way that those 3 pillars can support you in creating the epic success that you desire, it gets a lot easier to make sure that you are standing in your authentic power at all the different points in time. Let's start first and foremost with the mind, right? Your mind is actually one of the major power centers that you have. And so many of our challenges in the workplace come from our lack of awareness. And the self-awareness piece actually begins in the mind. That's where your consciousness is in your mind. And so for many women, the challenge that you face is that you just lack this consciousness and you lack the desire to become more aware of yourself. So your mind then takes you up and down all different kind of paths and has you moving all over the place. You have no control over your mind, and therefore you are unable to really leverage the power that your mind has, right? So when you're thinking about your mind, some of the things that you can think about in terms of how mind affects your power at work, it's time. Time is a simple one, right? Time management can be directly correlated to your mental awareness. Because women, let me tell you something. Whereas a man's mind is more like a bowling alley, right? He, at the end of the bowling alley, there are 20 pins and he has to throw the ball to hit the pins. And so he'll just take the ball and throw it down the bowling alley lane, and he'll get a pin or 10 pins or 5 pins or whatever the case is. A woman's mind is more like a pinball machine. You ever seen a pinball machine? Where you have like bing, 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 bing. You have all these different points, right? And boomerang areas and bouncy thingies and lights and there's still one ball, right? That you're trying to get from point A all the way up to the top, right? To point B. You're not necessarily knocking down pins. You're just trying to get from one point up to the end. But then you have all these different things that come along the way with this one ball while you are on that journey. That's how a woman's mind works. And guys, you can't tell me if I'm like totally missing this, but for me, I will be like thinking about, okay, getting ready for work. While I'm doing that, thinking about getting ready for work, okay, I have to figure out breakfast for the kids. Oh gosh, I forgot about paying this for the school teacher. Oh goodness, I was supposed to do this thing with the bills and I didn't remember to do that with the bills. This wrong report, I forgot to. Okay, that's normal for a woman, right? That's normal. Now, for many of you, you may be like, well, Stacey, I don't have no power over my mind. I can't affect those thoughts. So while you may not be able to stop your mind from pushing through 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, you can certainly control the direction of those thoughts. So it becomes more bowling alley-like, more bowling lane-like when you need it to be, as opposed to the ping pong ball machine. Because what ends up happening with your time is that when you're trying to navigate all of the things in the ping pong ball mindset, things are going to be late, things are going to be delayed, you are going to be late, right? Because you're putting yourself all over the place. Or if you're not running late, you are experiencing high levels of extended work hours, right? Extreme overwhelm because you don't know how you're going to do all of the different things that you have to do in the amount of time that you have to do it. And as you start entering into those spaces, you are diminishing your power. Yes, I hope you got that one. So your mind, and I use one simple example, there are other examples, but your mind is really, really key when you're thinking about your time and how you're managing your time. If you had more influence over the direction of your thoughts, then you could tap into the power of the mind and utilize the different tools that I'm always talking about, utilize the different tools to help you with navigating that ping pong stream. So even if you're moving from point A to point B and the thoughts are coming, you have that laser sharp focus that allows you to get things done. No, guys, it's actually a very powerful thing to be able to manage as many plates we spin in the air, and as many thoughts as we navigate in the air. It's one of those qualities of women that makes us super duper. You ever hear husbands talk about, I don't know how she does it. My wife is a superwoman. She has so many things on her plate. That's the power we have available to us. But when we are not harnessing the power and we are just, at the default effect of the mind, it prevents us from being as successful as we could be. All right, let's now talk about body. Before we talk about body, when you think about mind, I do have to bring up our sponsors for today's episode. So our sponsors for today's episode are Epic Intention Cards. And Epic Intention Cards have everything to do with the mind. I have a deck right here. I have a deck right here in front of me that I am actively shuffling, and I'm going to choose a card. These intention cards were created really with the woman of corporate in mind. It was a woman of corporate in mind that created them, also known as yours truly. And the whole idea behind creating these intention cards was to support you in your morning routines as you got your mind ready to take the day. So when you think about power and you think about utilizing your power to navigate the mental space, the mind space, intention cards are a great way to do that. So since I'm talking about intention cards and I've just shared with you about power, why don't we pull a card from our sponsors, Epic Intentions, and see what we get as our intention for today. Ooh, this is a good one. I know who I am. That is the intention. The intention is I know who I am. And there's a beautiful picture of a little girl with a crown on her head, and she has on this beautiful coat. And it's like gorgeous, gorgeous, because these cards, they have an intention. They also have a beautiful image that was actually created by a fine artist. And they have an affirmation that helps you to understand what you should be thinking about when you read this intention. So when you read this intention, I know who I am. What we want you to think about is I recognize that my true self is not the voices in my head, is not the fear in my heart, is not the thoughts and opinions of others. I am the observer of these. Oh, that's so good. So it's not the thoughts, the negative thoughts in your head or the opinions of other people, right? It's really that you are an observer of all of this, and you are able to use your power as the observer to direct the thoughts that you want to see more of in, and the thoughts you want to see less of out. So you want to make sure that you get your deck of Epic Intention cards from our sponsors. The link for the cards to get your own deck today is going to be in the show notes. All right, guys. So you definitely want to make sure that you check those out. All right. So let's get back to our conversation about standing in and owning your power. We just talked about the power of the mind. And now we want to talk about the power of body. And body is, I mean, aside from the fact that, you know, woman, ain't nothing like a woman's body. Oh my gosh, I love my body. And I have been through some major overhauls with my breast cancer reconstruction and all of that, right? But I love my body. And as a matter of fact, the older I get, the more I love my body. I appreciate my body. And our bodies are so powerful. Like when you think about the amount of effort that our bodies have to put us on a day-to-day basis, waking up, taking us from point A to point B, being able to have eat food and digest it, and the heart beating on its own. I mean, this is a powerful, powerful house engine, right? It's a powerful, powerful thing. And many of us take our bodies for granted. When you take your body for granted, you are not standing in your power. And the reason why you're not standing in your power is because when you take your body for granted, it starts to pop down. When you take your body for granted, it starts to lose its power, both its physical power and its energetic power, which we'll talk about next, right? And so in order for you to really show up and show out in the corporate space, you have to own the power that your body provides for you. You have to make sure that you are standing in that holistically and authentically. And when I say holistically and authentically, I mean, you don't think of your body just as a physical structure, right? There are things happening inside the body that you can't see or touch that affect your day-to-day. Stress, as an example, is an intangible thing that affects your body. And as a matter of fact, many of the diseases that are now being experienced are stress-related diseases, right? So as a matter of fact, the other day when I went to the doctor about my stomach because I was eating like crazy and I think I picked up some kind of bacteria, And the first thing, I went to like 3 different doctors, and the first thing that they asked me was, how much stress are you under? Because we don't realize how stress affects our physical structure. We always talk about exercise and creating fitness and that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to get into the details of it. But the main thing I want you to get, ladies, is that when you are a woman in the corporate space and you are standing in your power, it's not good enough for you to say, I'm standing in my power, but I'm not keeping up with my body. I'm not taking care of my body. I'm not doing some form of movement or exercise. I'm not eating what I'm supposed to be eating. I'm not having enough of the healthy things that are going to keep my body in the shape that it needs to be in. I'm not taking my vitamins and supplements that will keep my body intact, right? I'm not dressing my body. Hello. I'm not dressing my body in a way that complements me and makes me feel good about my body when I look in the mirror. I'm just not paying attention to who I am physically. And that is not only affecting my power, it may be also affecting my presence. It may be affecting how I show up in the room. And here's what is true, guys. You can actually talk about, oh, you know, that's vanity and, you know, it shouldn't matter what I look like and so forth. Here's what is true. We are working in a framework, and that framework has us, or that framework requires of us to be at work looking professional, right? Carrying ourselves a particular way. When you walk into a room and you're slouching, you know, even if you're not in corporate, if you're slouchy and you don't sit properly and, you know, your clothes dirty, your shoes bottom are fall off, like those things just don't look like somebody that cares about themselves, that cares about their well-being, and that wants to actually treat their body like the temple that it is. For me, one of the whole reasons I love me some good fashion, okay? And shoes, oh gosh, yes, I'm one of those women. One of the reasons why I love clothing and shoes is because I feel like my body should be dressed up. My body is a temple. And many of us, especially religious persons, right? You will make sure that the church fund is getting all it needs to get, the building fund, getting all the thing, the school fund, all the different funds, so that you can fix up even your homes. A lot of times your homes will be decked out, and then you step out and your clothes don't clean properly, or your shoes don't change in a 2, 3, 4 years. And it's not vanity, it is care, right? It's not okay to not present yourself physically, your body, to treat your body like it is a temple, and to present yourself in a way that shows that I respect the temple, the body that is carrying me around and allowing me to do this work. Stop thinking about what is happening with everybody else. Think about how you are thinking about yourself, right? So when you are standing in your authentic power, your body is going to be on point. It's going to be dressed well. You're going to be sitting well. You're going to be standing well. You're going to be walking well, right? The way you talk, the way you move into, and you know, you step into a room and people know that you are there, right? Okay, I'm in it now. All right. So you definitely want to be stepping more into your body power by taking care of yourself, taking care of how you present this temple that is yours. And then last but not least, certainly is energy, because you can look the best and your mind can set straight, but the energy that you bring into a room can totally stink it up. And I can tell you, I don't even have to get into what is stinky energy, because y'all are women, you know exactly what that is. You know what it's like when a woman who has bad attitude steps into a room. You know it, right? And I'm not even talking about those influencers now who are like, you know, I'm a boss, right? I'm a this, and it's all, it's a different, it's not just that energy, because you have that negative energy too, where it's a lot of ego and it becomes like just unattractive. So you have different levels of energy that you bring into a space. And depending on whether you're paying attention to how you are feeling, which is where our energy comes from, right? Then you're not standing in your authentic power. right? So by paying attention to your energy centers and paying attention to how you're feeling in the mornings and to actually spending time with yourself, so you're addressing that feeling, right? One of the things that I would actually change if I were a woman that had control over how I would structure work, right? I would not have women who have really bad periods work on the first couple of days of their period, usually when it's the worst, right? Because your energy and your attitude on those days where your womb feel like it's trying to extract itself from your body, you're either going to be heavily medicated, you're going to be pissed off with everybody and everything, you're going to be having all kind of different hormonal mood swings, hot, cold, in between, tired, hungry, angry, like, there's all these different things. And it amazes me when I look at how women show up at work every single day and act as though they don't have periods that are killing them. I'm so not about that life. If I had to design work, you'd just be off. You just stay home, girl. I don't want to have a meeting with you today. Okay. So energy is a huge component, right? Energy is a huge component of who we are being as women. And there is nothing like being as women. And there is nothing like beautiful feminine energy. And you can know when your energy is lit up, right? It's that time when you put on the red lipstick and you step into a room. Maybe it's that first date when you feel extra confident, or, whatever it is that makes you feel that extra juice, right? That's when your feminine energy is just alive and arising. And it's actually a very, very powerful place to be. And we don't actually know. We're not really good at actually allowing that energy, calling that energy in. And it starts with being able to, in the morning, I think it's the best time to really look at yourself in the mirror and call on that energy. You're feeling low today, have up some affirmations around it. Get your intention cards. There's actually a couple of intention cards in there that are about your feminine energy and that sensuality, right? And if you can pull on that, woman, you are unstoppable. If you know how to wield that energetic power dynamic, you will be unstoppable. It is mesmerizing. It is engaging. It is what a lot of these orators and great females who are great speakers, it is what they use. It is that feminine energy that is bubbling up within them that they know how to channel towards you. Okay? Now, make sure, I know that you would have heard at the intro of this podcast, you would have heard about my Fempowered Women in Leadership Development program. And that's the big news, guys. I'm so excited about this program because I really feel it's a game changer in supporting women who are on their path to success. It's for the woman who is seeking more balance, of course, because we talk about that a lot, but it's also for the woman who wants change, the woman who wants to deal with the misogyny, unconscious bias, microaggressions, and different things she may be experiencing in the work world. It's for the woman who wants to climb that corporate ladder or build her own corporate ladder and ascend to the success that she knows she is capable of. But you need the tools, you need the training. So tell your HR managers that they need to check out Fempowered. The link is in the show notes, guys, and you would have heard more about it in the intro. This conversation about owning your power and about owning those power centers, mind, body, and energy, is all that we discuss in Fempowered. It's about really getting to know yourself and to understand that power dynamic so that you can have more presence and build mental resilience to succeed and create quantum leaps in the boardroom. So I hope to see you in one of my programs, and I look forward to talking with you on another episode of the Balanced Lady Boss Show. Take care until next time, guys.